When I was 15, I played my first Souls game, Demon Souls. I remember instantly hating it. It wasn't until many years later, where I played Bloodborne, that I became a fan of the Souls series. In the following years, I played Sekiro, and then came Elden Ring, and then the well ran dry, until Lies of P was announced. From the first initial trailer, I was definitely curious, yet skeptical. A brand new IP from an unknown studio. I'm just some guy on the internet, and here are my thoughts on Lies of P, a not from software game. The story. The story begins with you waking up on a train in a deserted city of Kratz being attacked by puppets. Your one mission is to get to Hotel Kratz. Once you get to the hotel, you find out that the puppets are bound by a couple of laws, one of those laws being that a puppet cannot lie. However, you're not bound by those rules. This ends up being a gameplay mechanic and will impact this. Once you get to the hotel, you'll be greeted by NPCs, including a blacksmith, and even have access to a training ground. Once you've arrived at the hotel and spoken to the NPCs, this is when the story of Lies of P truly begins. Like in many Souls-likes before it, it's not littered with cutscenes every 2 seconds, which is one of the primary reasons why I enjoy these games so much. The story being delivered in a different medium other than cutscenes is quite refreshing, especially living in a world post God of War 2018 and Uncharted. What marks it from its inspiration is how NPC dialogue is significantly clearer. You won't have to read every single item description to get a full grasp of the story. Playing the game once is enough to understand the story. However, I would recommend playing the game at least twice. It will offer a different perspective on certain scenes. Let's talk gameplay. Dodging, attacking, parrying, it's all incredibly clean. The animations are buttery smooth and more than comparable to From Software. The game stands out with the addition of the Legion arm, P-organ, and weapon parts. Starting off with weapons, they come in 2 parts, the weapon and the handle. The blade will affect the weight and the damage type. The handle will dictate the moveset and the scaling. The blade and the handle also have a Fable art tied to them. These arts are either defensive, offensive, or a passive buff. So far, everything is great in the game. However, I do have one complaint, is that there's no poise in the game, making heavy builds completely pointless. And to add insult to injury, there is an entire poise mechanic in the game, which makes it even weirder that they wouldn't give it to the player character, but I digress. As mentioned previously, you have one more thing in your arsenal called the Legion arms. There is a total of 8 arms in the game. However, I only found 3 to be useful, that being the Flamberge, the Full Mini, and the Puppet String. Thankfully, those 3 can be acquired through the story. As for the others, you'll have to find the required materials. As for the other 5, I found them to be quite lackluster. I would highly recommend you focus all of your upgrade material in one of the arms, because you do have the option to respec them with a farmable currency. Next up, we have the P-organ, and this is where you're going to get your build variety. The P-organ functions as a skill tree. It is separated into 5 phases. To get to the next phase, 2 skills in a previous phase have to be unlocked. Each phase has 4 skills, and each skill takes 2 quartz to unlock. Quartz is the material required to unlock new skills. There are only 28 of them in the game. However, when you get to phase 3, skills become more expensive. If you're smart with the skills you decide to unlock, you can skip phase 3 entirely and get to the much more powerful skills in phase 4 and 5 earlier in the game than intended. Lastly, for the P-organ, for every quartz you spend, you will also gain a passive buff. Like in Bloodborne, you have a rally mechanic. This time around, it is called the guard regain mechanic. You have 2 health bars, a red and an orange one. If you block an attack, you will lose some of that red health. However, if you attack in enough time, you will regain that red health over the orange one, encouraging aggressive gameplay. Let's discuss bosses and enemies. There are 3 enemy factions in the game. Humans being weak to acid, Puppet being weak to shock, and Carcasses being weak to fire. Each enemy faction has a decent amount of enemy variety, to the point that you'll find new enemy types even at the very end of the game. As for the bosses, I love to learn their attack patterns. Each and every one of them felt unique, and they were a great way to end the level. I have 2 issues in total with the enemies and the bosses. Starting with the enemies is that they have way too many fury attacks. I feel like fury attacks should be reserved to bosses and only elite enemies. When it comes to the bosses, I would say that there are 3 bosses that feel unfair, that being the Green Swamp Monster, Simon Manus, and Alaxia. Small little pet peeve, I feel like too many bosses have the double health bar, removing the oh no moment when you fight the last boss. Let's end things with environment and side content. The game is much smaller in size compared to something like Elden Ring, and I have to say that this is a welcome change. Having something much smaller in size allowed the developers to make sure every area felt unique and handcrafted, and I have to say that they succeeded tremendously in this area. The city of Krat and its neighboring areas are a love to look at and a joy to explore, which leads me into my next segment, side quests and exploration. Exploration is definitely not this game's bread and butter, but with its smaller size, the rewards for exploration are truly fantastic 9 times out of 10. As for the side content, they have gone with a quality over quantity approach. This is also something that is greatly appreciated. Every side quest you complete will either give you backstory, equipment, rewards, and my favorite collectible of all, records. And I have to say that every single record you can find in this game is 100% worth it. If you're not the kind of person who likes completing side quests, I implore you to at least complete the first side quest that is available to you. I promise you the reward is worth it. And now for my final thoughts. I definitely enjoyed Round 8's approach to having a more out there story, and I hope we have more Souls-like games that follow suit in the future. As for the combat, I thought it was fantastic. However, I have to say, I would appreciate a little bit more fluidity between my regular attacks and the Legion arm. As of right now, the attacks in Legion arm truly feels like two separate. I would appreciate a follow-up attack, kind of like the puppet string, but for more of the Legion arms instead of just the one. Not to mention that the follow-up attack is only available once the puppet string is fully upgraded, making that ability only achievable quite late into the game. As for the enemies and bosses, great job. However, fewer fury attacks for regular enemies and fewer delayed attacks for bosses. Once again, this is a game about precision, not guessing, and delayed attacks only get in the way of player enjoyment. Not forget to add poise for the player character so that heavy weapons become a viable option. As for the environment and side content, I don't really have any negative things to bring about. I like the fact that every area feels handcrafted. I love the fact that the side quests are shorter and are a lot more obvious. My one little nitpick, if I had to, I would say the color palette. It is a little gray, which makes areas feel a tiny bit samey, but as I said, that is a nitpick and if I had to. If you can't tell, I'm a huge fan of the game and it's an easy recommend. The story is a lot easier to get into, which I think is a great thing for anyone who's new to the Souls-like genre. However, it is a little bit more on the difficult side, so that is something to take into consideration. If you're looking for a challenge with a nice story, this is an instant buy for me. I look forward to seeing what Round 8 Studio does with the IP in the future and any new IPs that they may come out with. I hope this video helped you make a decision, and if it didn't, just remember, at the end of the day, I'm just some guy on the internet. Now swag out. Thank you for making to the end of the video. For anyone who got to the end, let me know by writing Pinocchio in the comment section below. And I'll see you guys next time.